Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Good morning, everybody. This is Grant, and I could not be more excited for today for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons that I'm excited for today is that we get to spend time together and hopefully edify one another, lift each other up, because this world needs some good darn people out there doing good darn work to make a difference in the world. Yes. That is why we are here to ignite lives of explosive significance, state of the spark. We're here for you. We're here to make your life better. We're here to pump you up and hopefully educate you a little bit in the process. I hope your morning is going very well. I hope your week is looking abundant. Now, I know not everybody might not be vibing with me. I feel you, but you're here this morning and that's good. And hopefully we can get you vibing because there's a lot, like I said, a lot of goodness that needs to be created in the world. And it's dying for you. And I'm telling you, that's why we got the Spark Show today. We are covering how to make space for mission. I promised this what was it? I promised this last Friday, but we got sucked away. We got sucked away with conversation about GameStop and all that zaniness and movements. Maybe we should do a whole show about movements and how to not get sucked into movements, or how maybe to leverage movements. I talked a little bit with my buddy Eli on how to actually allow yourself to get sucked into movements. We talked a little bit about that. But today we're going to cover what I consider the 5 core steps to making room in your life for mission. And I want to fulfill my promise Friday to deliver on this thought, because I've been processing this a lot for myself, for my lovely bride, Marissa, for her, for so many people out there who I talk to, who they say, Grant, I don't have a mission. That's okay. When me and Marissa were at the Biltmore, I created a massively awkward moment. I asked our server, what's your dream? What's your vision? What's your mission? And in a huff, this guy said, I don't have one, and turned and walked away angry. And he came back later and he said, I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't too rude. I said, no, man, I ask people this question all the time and it kind of disturbs some people. And then he just gushed and he opened with how he dreamed for a certain vision in his life that was not manifesting. Ask someone. I challenge you today. Go ignite lives of explosive significance today by asking a random stranger, not how are you doing? How's your day? What do you do for a living? Forget those questions. Ask them, what's your dream? And I guarantee you're going to have a richer experience with that person. We're going to talk about the 5 ways I'm working right now, my life as experiment, how I'm working right now to uncover more mission in my life. And I'm going to share that with you. That's why you're on the show, because you're here to learn from the experiments me and Marissa are on to make your life a little better and a little more interesting, or at least a little more fulfilled. We're going to cover that. We got just 2 simple pieces of other news. Just 2 pieces of other news. And I guarantee it's not the stuff that's really clogging your mind. Remember, other news is news that is anything other. And we failed at this on Friday because we got sucked into GameStop. But other news is meant to be enriching good news from around the world that's inspiring, that opens us up, that we are not going to be stuck in the silo of just our American socio-political media that's just sucking into the zeitgeists of today. That's a little too much word verbiage for before 7 a.m., but you heard it here. And if nothing more, State of the Spark is here to educate and train you. But other news is meant to expose you that there are other things going on in this world that are good, that are beautiful, that are interesting, that are elevating us, again in an effort to build yourself up, that there are other things to focus on, good things, missional things, things that move the species forward, that move my community forward, and hopefully fulfill my spirit a little bit. So we got 2 pieces of other news, but before that, you know what time it is. If you've been here for a minute or a year, you know that we start every day together with a morning cup of gratitude. Morning cup of gratitude. So grab your warm beverage, whether it's tea or coffee or just water or whatever it is you do. Maybe it's morning greens. I do morning greens too. It's not in here. I did it earlier. But morning cup of greens. But we're going to share this together, and we're going to share what we're grateful for in the comments below. Take a moment to feel gratefulness and type it out and share it with us, because when you share gratitude one to another, it's like sharing, I don't know, in the ministry, testimonies, or in business, sharing stories. Share what you're grateful for. Joe Child says, yes, news like what Elon Musk is up to this week. What's his dream? Joe Child, no joke. I want to know what his dream is, because whatever Elon Musk's dream is, it moves markets. So I'd love it if Elon would pick up the red phone, call me, and say, hey, Grant, this is what my dream is this week. And we're jumping on that. Joe, are you invested in Elon Musk's dream? I know I am. I know I've purchased Tesla stock, and I'm committed to putting my money where my dreams are. And I really do believe in good people, modern day Edison's, not only Elon, but he's the most visible one. But I'm looking for stocks like Nikola stocks. I'm looking there. I'm looking at stocks that are sowing into a future that I believe in. And so playfully, I ask, are we invested in Tesla? I know I am. It's pulled back a little bit, so I'm going to invest a bit more. I'm waiting for SpaceX. Joe Child says, yes, never bet against him. This guy, he's definitely at the tipping point right now of being nearly untouchable. But you know what? In the end, we're all human. Lisa Welsh says, yes, greens, fresh, not powder. Last few deliveries. Been in the car for hours this morning. Lisa Welsh is out there hustling. And here's to you, Joe. Here's to you, Lisa, out there making a difference. And Lisa, if you know Lisa, her dream, don't mistake Lisa Welsh. She might seem small at first glance, but this is a larger than life person living out a vision to create a healthier world, to change the way the world consumes its vegetables. That's her mission. And she's out for hours this morning making her deliveries like Johnny Appleseed as it comes to greens. This is a person, do not underestimate this person. So it's easy to not underestimate Elon Musk, but what about the average guy and gal out there making a difference? Don't underestimate us either. And no, I'm not talking about GameStop. No, don't suck me in. Don't suck me in. I'm talking about the Lisa Welshes of the world. I'm talking about the Joe Childs of the world. People that most of the public couldn't even say, who's that person? You guys are making a massive difference. Let me tell you what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my story. Hear me on this. I'm grateful for my story. Are you grateful for your story? I mean, not just lip service. I mean, deeply. When you think about your story, it stirs you. This morning, I was writing yet another chapter in my book. I'm working on a manuscript. The working title of that manuscript is The Mission. Yes, that is where these topics have been coming from, because I'm stewing on mission. I'm stirred on missionalism, and I'm taking you along on that journey, whether it's this show, whether it's this book. I study things for myself, and then whatever, the reason I write these books is for me to synthesize the lessons. And then, of course, why wouldn't I hand those lessons to the people so that maybe they can learn something? Marissa, who's cozy somewhere in this house, says, Lisa Welsh is a boss lady. I don't know why my voice went super low. Maybe I should go super high. Lisa Welsh is a boss lady. Nah, Lisa Welsh, she's somewhere in between. She's a rock star. That's hype. Marissa's hyping you, Lisa. Nothing but love on the show today. I love it. But back to gratitude. Do you love your story? Warts and all. When I write my manuscripts, I am caught. The part of why I love the art of writing, and why I love having written the past books, why I will always write, and why I think ultimately my calling and mission is the writing. I think the writing for me makes me and requires me to lead what Marissa calls a novel life. You have to lead a novel life, not just like, hey, am my Instagram interesting? Let's go to Cabo and take photos. I don't mean that. I mean, actually live a rich life, our life of experiment. I call myself Guinea Pig B, as Buckminster Fuller also did. And capturing those in books causes me to relive these events. I was reliving a nuanced moment. I know I talk a lot about semester at sea, but today I was writing about crossing the threshold into mission, and I was comparing it to the moment I crossed the threshold from the landmass of the continental United States, got on a boat and drifted, and was then carried because of all the hard work I had done with the land, stepping onto the water, and now the boat carried me. I had to write the emotions I felt that day. I had to relive my story. And I was falling in love with my story again. And that is what journaling does. And what I am grateful for this morning is the choices I have made, the not easy choices I have made that allow me to point back to my story and stand up straighter and say, I am confident in myself. I am happy with the choices I have made because of my character building it has done, because of not just the story building, not just the braggability of some of the cool stuff me and Marissa have done and what I've done on my own, what she's done on her own, like the Colorado Trail in Marissa's case, but what we have all done, and being able to stand up tall with the decisions you've made with your life today. How are you making those decisions? So when I write, and what I am grateful for is my story. And I pray today that you are also grateful for your story. And if you're not, I am praying that you are stirred and convicted enough to make big choices today, character choices. I don't just mean big extroverted choices. I'm going to start marketing today, and I haven't been, but choices that you know that you've been procrastinating a thing, and in your secret place, you know you've been procrastinating or avoiding or having a bad habit you've been wanting to change. And in your secret place, you've been saying yes to that thing. But now it's time in your secret place to say yes. As soon as you shift from neglecting what you know you should do and shift into doing what you should do, it builds up and edifies your internal character. It makes you self-confident in increments, and that accumulates. Keep saying yes to your conscience. Do it. I'm grateful for my story, and my story is simply an accumulation of me having said yes to my conscience and no to my fear self. That's what I'm grateful for this morning. What else are you grateful for this morning? Here's to you and your story. And a quick small bit of other news today. We got two pieces of other news. Preserve bright blooms in ice. What am I talking about? What on earth is Grant talking about when it comes to preserving bright blooms in ice? Boom, right there in the comments. Right there in the comments. In short, an artist has gone out of his way to travel to the coldest part of Japan in an area known in Japanese, the Japanese language translates as the end of the world, because in the middle of winter in the Hokkaido province, the ice gets so thick and the place gets so cold, it becomes what amounts to a barren wasteland. Now, we've learned to enjoy the beauty of winter, Marissa and I, and we marveled even over the weekend at how marvelous our seasons. And in Florida, we don't get the benefit of all four seasons necessarily, marveling at this. In northern Japan, it gets absolutely blistering white cold. And an artist who is also a florist by the name of Makoto Azuma, yes, it's botanical sculptor Makoto Azuma, has begun doing surreal, and by surreal, he actually uses real flowers in gorgeous botanical art that he establishes, usually about 6 feet tall on flat ice. There's nothing around it for miles. It's flat snow and ice. And these botanical gardens, he assembles a large human-sized bouquet and then pours water over it to freeze and preserve the bouquet. And it makes, I'm going to put this in the comments, it makes the most beautiful, and you can even see a thumbnail there, it makes some of the most beautiful bouquets that are frozen. He does this as well as dipping bonsai in water and pulling it up and freezing bonsai in water. He does this as well as he's even paid for bouquets of flowers to be shot into space on space missions. He's a powerful, surreal installation artist, and you've got the link right there. I recommend you check it out. It is quite stunning and quite beautiful. And to look and ponder, what is this person saying in doing this? Is it about the preservation of these things, or does he suspend these in environments where they normally wouldn't be suspended to show you the power of beauty in desolation? I was pondering that this morning. It is a beautiful piece of art installation. And that is your first piece of other news that has nothing to do with everything the media wants you to get sucked into. And another piece of other news, this, believe it or not, is LSD news. Yes, you heard me right. LSD news. When done right, LSD can actually provide science with a lot of insight. I don't know if you've ever heard of the phrase as it comes to neuroplasticity and learning new things. The neurons that fire together wire together, meaning the thoughts you think, you become what you think about most of the time. As one of my mentors says, you become what you think about most of the time. And when you're trying to create new associations, for example, the way this works is if you're trying to learn a new language, don't just go out and try to learn, in this case, Japanese. Instead, learn Japanese about the things you're familiar with. For example, you might know about website design or personal development. Go learn the vocab in Japanese for those things. The neurons that fire together, wire together. You'll learn your trait as it pertains to your own skill. That's great to know. Instead of just learning like a child, you can wire yourself for memory much quicker. However, recently, author Andrea Lupi, who is a Gates Scholar at the University of Cambridge in the Cognition and Consciousness Imaging Group, has begun studying the effects of LSD on neurons and how they wire, and how can consciousness exist beyond the neurons wiring. What they're saying is this: the neurons that fire together, wire together. Most people believe your consciousness exists as a little construct of neurons connected in the brain that creates the anatomical brain. And we think that consciousness is your thoughts. The thoughts you think is your consciousness. However, recently, they've been taking the study of consciousness to new levels. You see, mostly studying consciousness has been around how consciousness is lost. What happens when you're in a coma? What happens when you fall asleep? What happens when you're under anesthesia? What happens to consciousness and where do you go? So oftentimes we study consciousness in terms of its loss. But what researcher Andrea Lupi is doing is trying to study consciousness when it is altered. And it is showing that LSD helps us make connections in our consciousness that are not limited with neurons. So instead of the neurons that fire together, wire together, the neurons that trip together, wire together. This is where we get new wiring in our brain. They're studying quite often this concept of ego death and ego dissolution. For people that either microdose or actually take a true LSD dose, there's often a sense of loss of ego, a sense of loss of self. You no longer think about yourself, you think about the whole. And then new thoughts start to present themselves that are transcending neurons. This is groundbreaking work going on right now with LSD, and it's helping us realize that your consciousness is not just the thoughts you think, but it's something wholly other than that. And your sense of I, myself, my opinion, is probably attached to how your neurons are wired. But when we try to think of ourselves as a whole, the whole species, as we try to think of ourselves as one with our spouse, as one with our species, and we transcend that, we start to think of ourselves as a we or as a whole. And it's in those moments that new thoughts, new ideas, and new wiring starts to occur. Very interesting research. You've got the link right there. That, my friends, is other news that has nothing to do with getting sucked into the emotional highs and lows of the markets, the highs and lows of politics, something that hopefully edifies you and creates new wiring. Leisha Wells jumps in about language in our comments about learning language just a second ago. She says she can collect debt in Spanish, but it's the only Spanish she knows how to speak. Back from her bill collector days. I love it. I love it. I learned Spanish very quickly when we were on the missionary field, and I could speak about personal development. I could talk, and Marissa can testify to this. I got in a conversation at a restaurant with my Spanglish, and we started talking about things of the universe and finding your sense of self and finding who you were. And I was doing it to gain the words, but we actually got into this conversation, and I was able to adopt what Spanglish I needed for that conversation because we were talking about personal development. So testament to the neurons that fire together, wire together. So real quick, you guys know that me and Marissa, if you've been paying attention, me and Marissa, we try to live a life of experiment. We try to live a life where others can learn from our own experiences for and against, for better and for worse. And so we've been trying to do that. And I just mentioned a few of my quick experiments. So quick experiments, updates. I'm still warming up in the morning, not working out. That's one of the experiments, to not work out in the morning, but to do a warm up so that I make more time for my mission. make more space. Today's topic is making space for mission. And I'm doing this where instead of a full workout, I do a shortened workout and I just warm myself up and then I journal. I write in my journal to prime my mind. And then I actually write in my book. And I know that this method works in general from past experiments, but now I'm experimenting with, can I move that workout to the afternoon? So my kettlebell has arrived. Twice a week, I'm doing 75 kettlebell swings. That's it. Twice a week. And then I'm paying attention to my nutrition because I'm trying not to focus on health and nutrition, but at least get it under control so that I can focus on my mission, writing, but living a life of experiment for you and for your learning. So my nutrition, Sunday was a wash. I ate horribly, and that's always okay by me. But in general, I've massively increased my vegetables and fruits. I've massively increased my Mediterranean diet, like my yogurts and different things like that. I've massively decreased meat. I only got meat about 3 times last week as I could estimate. I'm trying to limit meat to 2 or 3 times a week at most and focus on veggies, oats, oatmeal, yogurt, whatever I can. My stomach feels way better. And what I've noticed is I have much less brain fog. When I eat meat, I get a brain fog and it creeps in and I don't even realize it until I cut the meat. And suddenly my brain fog has begun to lift. I feel more limber, even though I haven't been stretching more. My waistline has not changed. I have not lost weight, so I need to get my caloric deficiency under control, but I'm not focused on that right now. So that's just a quick update on the experiments. But this leads me into the conversation for today, and that's making space for your mission. You've got to make space for your mission. Not everyone feels like they have time or energy. We've become thought consumers instead of thought generators. We've lost touch with an inner voice. In fact, a lot of you people who take my advice to go blog every day or to write in your journal every day, you're looking for a quote service, a quote feed, or a blog of someone else's, and you don't even synthesize it and make it your own. You just repost it. And that's not writing. That's actually being a thought consumer, not a thought generator. We've lost touch with our inner voice. And I talked about intuition recently, and I've been writing a lot about intuition as well. I believe intuition is a lost art, a lost function of the human species that's valuable and timely. The flow of thinking has now become one way, from the outside in, instead of a two-way flow that begins with the inside out, observes the world, synthesizes it, and then takes the lessons to develop character in. It's not that anymore. It's this one-way thought consumer from the outside in. That flow, I believe, is wrong. What's worse than this is we're so stinking busy keeping up, not just with social media. I'm not going to dog social media. We're so busy keeping up with news cycles. I told Marissa, back when 9/11 happened, we had days, weeks, months in the news cycle to process emotions. We had a long time before the very next news cycle kicked out. But these days, news cycles happen so quickly. Because we're so connected. News cycles have always been happening, but we're told that this next story is the most important in the world, and this next story is the most important in the world, that we don't have time to culturally process these emotions or individually. Now, some of this is important, right? Like we're reacting to the markets, even if it's just to be good stewards. For example, if you own a home and you see that the market's shifting, you want to react and respond because you want to be a good steward over those resources. In our businesses, we're reacting to the business landscape because we want to be good business owners and we want to make sure employment is steady. So as soon as news shifts, we're checking the news. That's a good, primarily good response. We're reacting to our family's needs. Am I a good partner to my spouse if the market is shifting and she feels insecure or he feels insecure, or my kids are freaked out about the future? So we stay connected and we try to keep at the bleeding edge, not just the cutting edge, but the bleeding edge of news. So we're refreshing our news cycles every minute. And then something like GameStop last week happens, and maybe we buy a little Dogecoin or buy a little GameStop or buy a little Bitcoin or get involved because we don't want to miss a cycle. This could be our moment that we break away and we get ahead of everything. This could be the moment that we get ahead of everything. And even if it's to be a good family member, to be a good investor, to be a good steward, we're getting sucked into this pace. We're reacting for our community's needs, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whether it's the political rallies or whatever it is, something's going to affect our local community. And I like our mayor, Bill Mutz, or other city commissioners, they've got to stay on the cutting edge just to be a good citizen. I watched a news article come out about someone in our local community that funded the Capitol rallies, and now we're involved in 90 comments about whether or not Publix should apologize. We feel like we have to have commentary on everything. Now, some people believe that the solution is just to cut and run. Let's just move into the woods. And that sounds very appealing. But then we're doing the opposite, where we're neglecting some of our community responsibilities and some of our relationship responsibilities. And all of these motives are generally good. But one of the victims of keeping up with these cycles is our sense of mission and purpose. We don't have time to ponder our mission and purpose. And today I just want to talk briefly about making more space in your life for and uncovering your mission. Not discovering. Discovering sounds too much like happenstance. I don't believe you should discover your mission like it's fixed and it is what it is. Remember, mission is just a term I give to the group of feelings. That's the convergence of your gifts, your skills, your desires. Forget your gifts. Just your cravings, your desires that happen to match a need in the world, a felt need. And when you can put your hand to it, that person shows appreciation, or that group of people express appreciation, and it's the most fulfilling act. And it's oftentimes also bundled with a contemplative or contemplation of your meaning and purpose in the world. And when those things come together, the emotions that hit, the dopamine, the cortisol, the oxytocin, the good feelings that pervasively come out of that, when you hug the poor person in Haiti, when you hug the person with gangrene in spite of your own fears, not only does the oxytocin hit, but the dopamine hits that you're actually doing some of the most important work you can. Now, are we at risk of being the great white hope? Yeah. Are we changing the world? No. Are we changing their world? Maybe. Are we changing our world? 100%. This is what I mean when I talk about mission. It could be for-profit. It could be nonprofit. It could be familial. It could be community-driven. But you and I know, in a secret space, in an honest bucket, in an honest room, you and I could look at each other and talk and know whether or not that thing you're doing is actually the thing you're called to. So few of us have space for the time. So I have a few quick principles that I've already earmarked, and I'm just going to rapid fire these. And then I want to get to the 5 things I'm working on to create more space, and I suggest you do the same. Here's 4 quick principles that are just rock solid in me from my experience, and I just want to dump these on you. You can replay this later, but number 1, this is a quote from John Eldredge, and I'm sure you've heard it, but from this context, I want you to hear it again. Do not go out and find what the world needs. Find instead what makes you alive, because what the world really needs is people who are alive. You know, when you walk this business as mission world, I came from the missionary world. I walked away from a lot of the dogmas of the church, though I still carry a lot of the culture of the church and a lot of the language set as well. But missionalism is powerful. But you step out of that and then you get into business and you start to do business and you realize, man, this is not even values driven. This is just commerce driven. When you go out and find what the world needs and meet it, even though you might be in the nonprofit space, that's very much a commerce-driven approach. And it's good in the early days. It's good in your small business. It's good in your nonprofit. In the early days, to go find a need and meet it. I was taught that in the church, and it was good for a young mind who didn't know what they were doing. Go find a need and meet the need. Not because it solves the world's problems, but because it gets you to quit having analysis paralysis. But the hope is that you mature and you stop this cycle of finding what the world needs and meets it, because then you start to realize the gray area where we're actually making an impact in Haiti and in the Dominican Republic. A little bit, but we were really making an impact on ourselves. But when you start reading books like Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger and Travesty and Haiti and Toxic Charity, then you realize I'm doing more harm than good. And you don't want to harm, but then your sense of purpose and mission gets shook. And I think that we need to begin to start to allow that to be a natural psychological pivot to asking the question of what makes me alive? And doing that. Could it be the same course of action? Could I still be working in Haiti? Yeah, but I'd be doing it differently because it would make me alive. Lisa Welsh jumps in and says, my mission to change the world with vegetables has literally just put me in a path to join some other farmers and help a tribe in Africa. I'm only on year 2. Being very specific has opened doors. Now, there's a lot of good learnings from this. So I'm going to leave this up for a second. I won't unpack them all. Specificity is important. Marissa convicted me again. We've got to get even more specific in our calling. And Lisa, you and I have talked off and on about talking to your farmers. I'm telling you now, I'd like to engage in that conversation further because me and Marissa, to get more specific, we want to be involved with mission-driven doers, mission-driven entrepreneurs, mission-driven coaches and speakers, mission-driven nonprofit people, but mission-driven, I'm going to generalize, mission-driven entrepreneurs is generally any of those people. For this reason, the more specific you get about who you are and what is fulfilling you, the more doors that open to you. Sheena says, I'm currently reading Uncharitable by Dan Pallotta. Man, how challenging is this book? Me and Marissa worked in Haiti for about 5 years. We lived in the Dominican Republic for 1. And when we discovered we had been actually doing more harm than good, maybe, it was so convicting that we got shook from our mission. Principle number 1, don't go find out what the world needs. Find out what makes you alive, because what the world needs is people who are alive. Principle number 2, to find your mission, first find your voice. This goes hand in hand with the preceding principle, because you go out there and just find a need and meet it. Well, kids need education in Africa. Let's go do that. We did work in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. We needed a community school. We kept doing these things, and they were good. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they made a difference. Sheena says, very challenging. LOL. Yeah, man, it's convicting stuff. So I believe you need to start there. But I believe that when you are convicted that you might not be doing as much good as you thought, or in my case, I might be guilty of being the great white hope. I might be guilty of further colonialism. You got to let that challenge you and pivot you. And it's going to feel like you've lost your sense of direction, but that's good. Let that be a hinge you swing on to swing into asking the second one, find your voice. Number 3, what makes you angry as a young person may be a clue as to what your mission is. This is just a rule for me. I got this in the early days of the ministry when they gave Moses as an example. When Moses was young and he heard the oppression of an Israelite, he killed an Egyptian. And that's what made him flee. As the story goes, that's what made him flee into the wilderness and go find himself. Was it good? Not necessarily, but it was a hint at what his calling was. And I think the same is true for us. That which drives you absolute crazy. My friend Eli and I were talking this morning, and there's just some things societally that drive him batshit crazy. And every time we talk about it, it comes full circle to conclude, man, this really is a clue as to what your calling and mission might continue to unfold to be. Number 4, this is the last principle. You're after the feeling of fulfillment and meaning that you get from mission and adventure, not necessarily from mission and adventure itself. You want the feelings of fulfillment, not necessarily the thing itself, and that's okay. And if we can accept that, then we can wholeheartedly quit trying to come up with the perfect mission and just give yourself a mission of something in front of you, something that's close to the convergence of your desires or maybe your skills and passions with the need in front of you. Using your own voice, give yourself that mission and you can move forward. Those are my 4 quick principles. And I'm not going to circle back on those because that's actually not what I'm working on. Those are like just rules that I've developed over time that are going in my book called The Mission. Maybe coming out next year. I'm working on it. It's a slow burn, but it's another manuscript I'm working on. But here are the things I'm committed to working on. Number 1, stop all unnecessary commitments. Stop all unnecessary commitments to make space for mission in your life. Some of you are too committed right now Some of you are too committed right now to GameStop. Some of you are too committed right now to maybe making your business square peg round hole. Maybe your business needs to evolve. Some of you are too committed to what's going on with that networking group or this networking group or this Facebook shopping group. Some of you are too committed to what's going on with this friend group. You see, once you get into living, into a groove, into a stable community, you get sucked into these commitments. And honestly, that's a good thing. We want stability of community. You must make the space in your schedule around your provisional responsibilities. Of course, you have to grow your business. But you need time to stop and you need time to think. There is so much busyness of keeping up the commitments that it's got all your attention in that world. And it's very hard to be introspective in that space. Very difficult. Possible, yes, possible for some people. But to be sincerely, authentically introspective, it's very difficult. I believe you should quit any goals that require you to be somewhere, that require you to move around sporadically. I quit going to the gym as much as I love it. This season requires me to find my mission. I quit going to the gym, burn that bridge, cancel my gym membership, and I'm just not even working out. I'm warming up at the house because I need to make room for my mission, and that is studying and synthesizing this in the form of writing. To write is my current mission. And I got to generate that content, the material, the lessons, the courseware, this show. That's all part of me writing. It's part of my mission. So I've got to cut out time for that. So quit any goals that require you to be somewhere. So sacrifice is letting go of things of a lower nature to make room of things of a higher nature. You need to sacrifice some of your goals and not tell them no, but tell them not yet. Put them just a little bit further down the ladder of priority and increase the priority of your mission. You got to make room. What happens then is number two, bore yourself again. Me and Marissa sat on the couch so long yesterday. At one point, we were just bored. And then we were overthinking other things too much. Once you've cleared your schedule, your time will open up. You'll find yourself literally sitting around, wondering what you're supposed to do. This is the moment where you're tempted to go pick up a book. This is the moment where you're tempted to, okay, Grant, well, I won't watch Netflix. I'll just watch a documentary, or just one episode. Or you grab social media and click, or you click through TikTok again, or you work in the garden, or you clean the house. Don't do it. Bore yourself again. First, again, this is all about making space for you to reconnect with your mission. Number one, make the space. Quit all commitments. Clear your schedule. And for those who love and know you, they will understand. They'll have grace for it. For those who don't know and love you, who might get bent out of shape, you don't need them on your schedule anyway. So make the space for stop all commitments, clear your schedule, and then bore yourself again. Remember what it was like to feel bored. You might even doze off. And here's the thing, just like meditating. Oh, I always fall asleep. Your brain is tired. You need to meditate and allow yourself to doze off. Your brain is so on overdrive from absorbing all the information of the world that if you stop all commitments and you bore yourself again, you might fall asleep. Then take the nap. Your brain probably needs it. This boredom is a very important step in creating and reconnecting with your mission. There's like clear out the cutter. Joe Child says, I love that you are focusing on mission and putting language to your higher purpose. Your mission sparks others' missions. Joe, you know how that lights me up. You know how that sparks me to hear that from another individual. And you especially have a lot of respect for your opinion, sir. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So you've got to bore yourself again. And I encourage you, do this for 3 solid days, other than your work responsibilities, your provisional responsibilities. They got to get done. But that's it. Bored. Day 1, you're going to be bored and absolutely wrestling with your go-to boring habits. Should I get on Netflix? Should I read a book? It's better. It's a book. Don't do it. Don't rush to fill the void. Make the space. Let the, what do they call it? Fallow ground. Let the ground remain fallow. Don't even till. Just let it rest. Day 2, you're going to start welcoming the boredom. And your mind begins to unwrap, and you might even take afternoon naps after work before dinner. You might go, I should do some chores. Maybe capture those on a sticky note and put that down. Capture your desire to read that book and put it down, but don't do the thing. Let your brain unspool. Please, for the love of God, let your brain unspool. And day 3, By day 3 of refusing to go to your normal go-tos, you're going to have true rest in your brain. And I believe you'll actually have deep sleep because you're not going to be clicking like you normally do. Can you do this for 3 days? Can you take the boredom challenge, the spark boredom challenge, and bore yourself for 3 days? And the goal is to clear out the inputs, to make room to listen for your inputs that come from your heart and your soul. That's number 2, bore yourself again. Number 3, add prayer and meditation. On day 4, I encourage you to pick up meditation. In fact, if most of you have tried meditating in a busy mind and have struggled, I encourage you to do this purge again and try to meditate in a bored mind. And I mean bored from a positive perspective. I believe it's very good to have a bored mind. So from step 3, add prayer or meditation or both. If you struggle to meditate still, get into that prayer, get into the prayer state and start just praying, and praying, not just talking to the divine or talking to the divine in yourself, praying from the aspect of listening for the unction, the impressions on your heart that you should be praying for. I don't know if you remember how to pray, but you should not only be making petitions to God or to the divine or to your spirit or to the oneness, you should also be listening for the need and the oneness and those people that strike your heart, the neighbor who might need help, that old lady who feels lonely right now that might need a phone call or encouragement, the person or that server that you come across, those impressions that stir up in you. Prayer helps you reconnect with the listening. So the first step in prayer is listening. The first step in meditation is centering yourself and aligning yourself with the presentness. And as your brain wants to jump to Netflix or wants to jump to the cell phone, similarly, your brain will want to jump to a thought that you want to think or jump to an impression you want to think. So step 3 is on day 4 of this purge, of boredom purge, on day 4, I'd like you to add in meditation or prayer, quietness of thought. Start with just 5 minutes of meditation. And I know, like, meditation, for those who struggle, have tried. Many of you now have tried it and have failed at it. You can't fail at meditation. I don't know if you know that. If someone taught you you can fail at meditation, you're doing it wrong and you need a new teacher. You can't fail at meditation. So we've talked about stopping all commitments, clearing your schedule, just for like a week. Come on. COVID had you stop life for a year. We can stop for a year, a week of intentionality. Clear your commitments, clear your calendar, clear your goals. Just give yourself grace for like a week. Number 2, bore yourself again. Get rid of your go-tos. Get rid of Netflix and chill. Get rid of all of it. Purge all of that and just still yourself and be like, I'm so freaking bored. I should do something. Keep going. That's where you're formulating character. Number 3, by day 4, add prayer and meditation to your life. Pray for people. Pay attention to your inner voice. Who should I pray for? Who should I meditate on? What should I think of? No, not the normal stuff. I'm going deeper than that. As soon as you have your normal go-tos, push a little bit further and say, no, what's people that I don't normally think about that might need my prayer or my meditation? But you should have plenty of time after work. Do this for 5 minutes. Do this for 15 minutes, and then you can go back to being bored. But please do not pick up the normal boredom go-tos, your book, your television, even being productive with your work. You've got 8 hours, solid hours you're going to be working during the day. You can take a week to allow yourself to be bored. And if the previous 3 days of boredom, maybe you found yourself dozing, if you just do your meditation, you can give yourself permission to doze again. That's fine. But the goal is to stretch your mind, to unspool the normal train of thoughts, and to literally make room for you to ponder your mission. Now, I will give you permission to do that. As you start praying and meditating, I give you permission to start asking yourself this question. What's my mission right now? Perhaps what's my calling for now? Callings and missions aren't permanent, fixed. Callings and missions are where you're called to right now. But you're allowed to ask yourself, and don't just rush to fill that space in. Ask the question and then listen in that quiet space. Number 4, once you've gone about 4 days of intentional boredom, intentional clear schedule, intentional peace of mind, you'll find yourself puttering around the house. You'll find yourself seeing little projects. Try not to do them unless you can continue the state of pondering meditation. If you can do painting as a meditator, continue that. If you can do chores around the house, but don't do work, don't do your boredom go-tos like social media, like Netflix. Don't do those normal things. Instead, pull back and allow yourself to do small things that don't interrupt a fluid, prayerful life. This is when scripture actually says, pray without ceasing. This is where it comes to, where you can live a life of meditative awareness. So you're just doing this on the off hours between work, before or after work. By day 4, you've added prayer and meditation, and hopefully now you're kind of getting used to puttering around, praying and meditating. So number 4 is this: add writing in your journal down the things you sense you're hearing. Journaling isn't just like, I saw Susie yesterday. Journaling might start there to get your fingers used to just clickety-clacking and your hand used to scribbling. But if you've been doing these 3 days, pure days of meditation, and the 4th day, or 3 days of boredom, the 4th day of boredom, you would involve meditation. On day 5, I want you to add your journal. And as you sit and ask yourself, ask your spirit, ask God, ask the divine, ask oneness, ask your internal life, who should I be praying for? As an answer comes up, write it in your journal. That's it. Just write it down. I feel like I should be praying for Stacy. I feel like I should be praying for Susie. I feel like I should just write those things down. And then when you put in the question, and when you ask your soul the question, what's my mission? No answer. What's my mission? I don't know. You're not trying to get an answer as much as you're trying to incentivize or increase the flow from your internal life to your external life. Brock says, I did mental purge last week while quarantined. That's awesome. So maybe he came down with COVID or something. He was quarantining himself, and he took that opportunity to purge his mind. This stuff is powerful. Thank you, Brock, for sharing that, man. So as you make this headspace for mission, you've added journaling. So as you sense an answer, well, what is my mission? Even if it's the same answer you've always gotten, write it down in the journal. When you write these answers down, even if they're I don't know, the weight of fulfillment, the emotion of meaningfulness will be added to what you're scribing. You'll be writing, and it will feel almost like a talisman because you've taken the time to mentally purge. You've created 3 solid days of boredom, a 4th day of boredom while adding prayer and meditation, and on the 5th day, you've begun journaling. This is I'm telling you, this is the Grant guarantee. If you do this and you don't have more mental clarity, if you do this and you do not have more hints, breadcrumbs, or a path to your mission, I guarantee I'll write you a check for $100. You have to show me that you've walked this out, though. It's the Grant guarantee, absolutely, that you will come out of this with a sense of purpose and meaningfulness. Guaranteed. It's that close to you. And I mentioned this on the other show. It's because I believe the muse, God, the spirit, the oneness, your own Jiminy Cricket, your own sense of consciousness, I believe you will absolutely have clarity, but I believe the muse visits us daily. I believe wisdom visits us daily. Oh, I think I'm getting comments over at the, there we go. I have Jessica commenting at another group. Jessica says, love this. Jessica, I sincerely appreciate that word. Share it with a friend. But what do you love about it, Jessica? I'd love to hear about that. Brock says, can't go wrong with slow, deep breathing. Yep, Brock and I know have talked about this before, but another tool you can add because you're having all this boredom time. Why not add the Wim Hof breathing method? Why not have deep breathing that just focuses on the breathing? Wim Hof expands your VO2 capacity as well as basically allows you to drop your own self-generated DMT. It's powerful that way. So by day 4, you've added prayer, or I'm sorry, by day 5, you've added prayer meditation. You've done maybe 2 sessions of 5-minute meditation. That's it. And you've added journaling. You've gone deep into your spirit. You've inquired of what are some of the answers that my conscience would tell me, my quiet life, my conscience, my muse, my sense of internal id, whatever it is. If you get quiet for days on end, you don't go to your boredom things, you journal this thing, I guarantee you're going to have massive clarity. It's the Grant guarantee. If you can prove you've done this for 5 days and you come to me and say, no, Grant, I don't feel more peace of mind, I don't feel more clarity, and I don't have breadcrumbs towards my mission. If you could say that honestly, I'll write you a check for $100. I call you on your bullshit. Nothing but love this morning. Jessica says, no way of doing it wrong. Clear the clutter. I love it, Jessica. You're awesome. I was going to say you're the man. You're not. You're the woman. Last step. And this is the flakiest of flaky. So if you stuck with me this long, thank you. Here's the absolute flakiest of flaky that I do all the time. You ready for this? Flakiest of flaky. As you nurture a quiet internal life, as you nurture this peacefulness, I want you to come up with your secret counsel. This is from Think and Grow Rich. It's not my own, but I have adopted it and it works. This is from you can see my old busted copy of Think and Grow Rich. I've read this thing more times. I got to get a new version. Think and Grow Rich. One of the mastermind principles are there, and we think, well, let's just go make people in my industry. The mastermind principle from Think and Grow Rich was having an imaginary, visualized secret counsel. Because remember, this is all about making space for your mission, for feeling a calling on something in front of you, for feeling the emotions that make you go, hell yes. If it's not a hell yes, forget about it. The emotions, you're looking for this place. And what we often need that we lack is we lack a tribe of elders who come to us and affirm us, gently correct us, call us on our BS, give us insight and direction. And we often do not trust our own selves. So the genius of the mastermind principle from Think and Grow Rich that I have deployed is you come up with people from history that you massively respect. And in your meditation moment, because remember, you've done 3 days of boredom, a 4th day of adding prayer meditation, a 5th day of journaling. Let's say that you keep this going. You then take one of your meditation sessions to visualize and picture these 3 or these 5 or these 6 or 7 individuals from history that you have a massive amount of respect for. And visualize it. Go to that quiet place where you've gone and you've put a question, what's my mission? And you visualize. Visualize the room. Visualize the space. Visualize a table, whether it's a round table or a square dinner table, and visualize these 3 to 5. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 individuals in my secret council. And I am telling you, it's flaky. I'm telling you, it's completely imaginary, but it is completely normal and healthy. It's only flaky because people don't take advantage of the power of their mind for this. But sit around the secret council and ask them the question, what's my mission? Don't you force them to answer in your imagination. Let them answer. I will give you an example. Jesus is the historical Jesus, not the biblical white hair, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus, but the historical Jesus, who is a Middle Eastern man with a crooked nose, has been sitting in my secret council for years. He's only spoken twice. When I ask the question, what's my mission? I have several individuals that go around. One of them is Bob Proctor. He's still alive, but this is a person who I imagine as a grandfatherly voice who speaks, who answers my questions. And I ask and I know I'm visualizing. I'm not pretending. I'm not channeling like Abraham Hicks, which is an interesting concept, but this is what people who channeled said was channeling. Visualizing these people and what's called automatic writing. Imagine asking them this question in deep detail. Believe it or not, this only takes about 3 minutes because your brain moves actually so quick. But if you're deep in it, you lose a sense of Chronos time. You get sucked into Kairos time. It seems like it's going very slowly, but you come out of it and it's only been 3 to 5 minutes. But you've consulted with this council. No matter what they say or respond, write it out. Flaky, I know. Whether it's you're Christian and you want to picture the disciples or heroes of the faith, whether you're secular, believe it or not, this is going to be completely flaky. I have a faceless astronaut in my secret council who represents science in the future. And the visor's down. I have no idea who they are. It's a faceless astronaut who I turn and I ask the question of, what's the future? Am I in line with the future? And they often just make hand gestures because they're in their spacesuit. It's so flaky. It's flaky, but it works because these become facets of your own conscience, facets of your own soul. And they speak to you from a depersonalized perspective and speak wisdom into your own life. You're basically speaking your own wisdom to yourself in a depersonalized way. I know it's flaky, but there they are. Stop and clear your calendar of all commitments, even goals that are not serving your highest goal. all of them with love. Clear the schedule. Number 2, bore yourself again. Absolutely 100% bore yourself again. Don't go to your go-to Netflix. Don't read a book even. Don't jump to fiction or nonfiction. Don't jump to, well, I'll switch from Netflix to documentaries. I'll switch from fiction binging to documentaries. None of it. Sit. Literally sit with yourself. And in 3 days of doing that, you're going to actually have deep rest and sleep at night. On the 4th day, add meditation and or prayer. Add prayer and or meditation. Whatever you can stomach, do it. And build up to 2 sessions. Day 5 or step 4, journal and capture the sessions. And last but not least, add a secret counsel and journal what they're doing. I'm giving you the grant guarantee. If you do this, you will absolutely have more mental clarity than you have had in months, if not years. I guarantee you will have breadcrumbs towards your mission. I guarantee you'll have much better emotions around your outlook on life. You don't have to do this for life. You just do it for a week. I guarantee it'll work. Listen, that's all the time we have today, my beautiful friends. Listen, go out, have a fantastic Monday, but hear this, please. Remember the mission today. Igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. We'll catch